officially a subject of Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's investigation, according to a breaking news report tonight in the Washington Post. One of the authors of that report will join us in a moment, Robert Costa. Your status in a federal criminal investigation is often clarified by your lawyers when investigators want to question you. As we know, Robert Mueller has been seeking to question President Trump for months now. And there are three possible status levels for someone prosecutors want to interview. They are witness, subject, and target. Witness is the least dangerous status. Target is the most dangerous status. Target is exactly what it sounds like. Witness means you have something useful to say but are not implicated in a crime. You're the driver for a limo service and you drove O.J. Simpson to the airport at a particular time, and it's very important to the investigators to know exactly what time you picked up O.J. That's all they want to know. They are not investigating anything about you, the driver. They just want to know what time you picked up O.J. That's the most innocent status. Witness. Subject is the middle status. Subject is more than a witness. Subject is someone whose conduct is being investigated, but at this time is not apparently guilty of a crime. But subject is a very dangerous status because when subjects go in to testify under oath, they sometimes become targets, because they end up giving prosecutors the kind of information that changes their status from subject to target. They could also instantly become targets of perjury investigations if they don't tell the truth under oath. So you don't ever want to hear that you are a subject of an investigation, because subjects can always become targets, which is the only thing worse than being a subject. Targets then usually become accused defendants, and so far in Robert Mueller's investigation, that usually means
Professor Turley makes very erudite arguments this morning, and that's, I think, why the president tweets what he says, obviously, because of his erudition. Just messing with you, John. He tweeted with you because he agrees with you, or agrees with a quote of you, I should say. But I will point out respectfully one potential logical hole in the case that the professor makes, which is, well, if Bob Mueller hasn't said something, does that mean it hasn't happened? I think that was part of the legal logical implication. Well, Bob Mueller has not done any indictments about the criminal hacking, the felonious hacking that took place. Everyone knows it's a crime. You cannot steal property. You cannot steal digital property. Right. Emails were hacked. It doesn't matter whose emails they were. They could have been Donald Trump's emails or John Podesta's emails. They happened in this case to be Podesta's emails. We know that was a federal American felony. There has been zero indictments on it yet. All that tells me is they either haven't found the people or it's coming later. It doesn't tell me that it didn't happen. And let's extend this logic tonight to what Mueller's probing. The four key things under investigation are Russia's election interference online, their hack of Democratic emails, the Americans who cover up, lie, or obstruct this probe, and then, of course, the big one, potential U.S. collusion. So take each of these things. Did they happen? Well, U.S. authorities say interference, yes. Hack, yes. The cover-up, yes. As for the Trump campaign collusion, well, still totally undetermined. Now turn to what Mueller has indicted so far. On the interference, yes. 13 Russians already. On the hack, no. 9 months into this probe, no one's been indicted for the email hack. The cover-up? Yes. The most common charge against Americans so far has been lying, and then there's the collusion, an empty box, no indictments. Now, if you look at that, why does that matter right now? Well, understanding the difference between whether a crime occurred and whether it has been charged actually shines a light on where this probe is headed. Now, Professor Turley, who Trump is quoting, said he doubts collusion because after a year of indictments and pleas, they conspicuously don't include the nexus or suggestion of collusion. Now, that's just an argument that because something hasn't been criminally charged, it didn't happen. But the lack of charges doesn't legally determine whether the underlying thing happened. Take what we know to date, those two empty boxes on the right. One is for conduct that did happen, the hacks. The other is for conduct that is undetermined, the collusion. It would be silly to argue either empty box proves what happened. In fact, as we mentioned earlier tonight, a story breaking right now is that Mueller's eyeing the email hack to assemble charges against Russians for hacking and leaking emails to hurt Democrats. So actually, Mueller may be looking to check that very box on the board, which would only leave the collusion box unchecked. And maybe that box will stay empty. As I've reported, we don't know. Whether it's charged, though, does not answer the existential question of what happened. And that's an important legal distinction for one of the most important stories.
Well, there's big breaking news in the newspaper the president loves to hate tonight, perhaps not so much tonight. The Washington Post's Carol Leonnig and Robert Costa reporting that Special Counsel Mueller has briefed the president's legal team and told them he does not, and I repeat, not consider him a criminal target at this point. Leonnig and Costa are attributing it to three people familiar with the discussions. They report that in talks early last month about a possible presidential interview, Mr. Mueller described the president as a subject of the probe. The question is, what's the distinction? Joining us for that is CNN Chief Legal Analyst Jeffrey Toobin and CNN Legal Analyst Carrie Cordero. So, Jeff, this news that Mueller is continuing to investigate President Trump but does not consider him a criminal target, but rather a subject of his investigation. What is the difference?
Well, in federal law enforcement, there are three categories of witnesses. There are targets who are almost certainly going to be charged, going to be indicted. There are witnesses who are just people whose information is of value to the prosecutors. And in between the two, there is something called a subject. That is someone who is under investigation, but who may or may not be charged. Trump is a subject, and I don't think that's particularly good news for him. I mean, it's a big deal to be under criminal investigation by the FBI, particularly if you're president of the United States. This has been implicit in what the Mueller investigation has been doing, but this confirmation that the president is under criminal investigation, I mean, that's a pretty profound thing to think about.
And Carrie, according to the Washington Post reporting, to the point that Jeff just made, some of the president's attorneys have told him that's part of the danger of him sitting down for an interview, that you can go from being a subject to actually a target pretty quickly.
Well, one could, depending on the outcome of that interview. So certainly, being a subject, they shouldn't be cracking open any champagne in the White House if he's the subject of an investigation, as Jeffrey just described. There is certainly risk of him sitting down for an interview, although it's really difficult at this point to see a path forward for this investigation, both in terms of its look at the Russian influence on the election and any potential cooperation or knowledge on behalf of the campaign, and the obstruction piece. It's hard to see how it will conclude without the president at some point being interviewed by the investigative team.